I call to order the meeting of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers, November 3rd, 2022. I don't know if they wish to speak, but I want to recognize the guests we have this evening from the board of the LMCD. We have Denny Newell and Mike Kirkwood. If you wanted to address the board, you could do that now. Come forward, yes.
James, can you turn on the mics?
These are on, right?
Yes.
These are okay.
What is that thing? Is that a good camera?
I'm sorry.
What is that big box?
It's a sound
Camera
bar.
and sound.
Welcome, Mr. Kirkwood.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mike Kirkwood, and I live in
excuse me,
Minnetrista.
Would you actually state your house address for our record?
Oh, yes, 5435 Cedar Point Road.
Thank you.
And I have been on the LMCD for the last 3 years, along with my compatriot Denny Newell behind me. He is from Woodland. He's not coming forward, apparently. So we just wanted to pop in and meet you all because we realize that our interests cross the waters from time to time, and we wanted to know more about this organization and have a chance just to make some high-touch contact with you. That's our only agenda for being here tonight, and we certainly hope to see you in one of our meetings where we have 14 people. And we're all trying to talk together, so that's really my only message is thanks for having us in the room, and we understand that you have some matters that require us to leave later. That's no problem, so we'll take care of that.
Well, thank you. It's nice to have you both here this
Thank you.
evening. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
The next item is approval of the agenda, and there's going to be a change of the order of taking matters up. After 11.1, we'll take up 12.1 and then go to the remainder of the action items. With that change, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval.
Thank you, Manager
Second.
Miller. And thank you, Manager Olson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And I realize that I did not take roll call, but all managers are present. Thank you very much. We certainly have a quorum that way. Under information items, we have introduction of a new permitting staff. They're not in the room, so come on forward then. Usually we have like Kayla would be introducing you, so you have to start from scratch.
Thank you.
I'll ask you to take a seat, Maria, and I think I was on deck to provide introductions, or shaking hands and
Okay.
rousting board members from dinner, but I'll give a very brief introduction of Maria, who's joining us here, and I told her I'd keep it very brief to not steal her thunder. We're very happy that she's joining us via the city of Shoreview, and is one of our new permitting staff, and is bringing just a lot of energy and dynamism in her first couple of weeks here with the team. And I'm going to ask Maria to just share a little bit about her academic and professional background, and like I told her earlier, why you chose Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. So welcome, Maria.
Thank you very much, James. So again, my name is Maria Fregis. I have a degree from the College of St. Benedict in biology and environmental studies. My focus was in ecology and behavioral ecology with wildlife. And I previously worked for the city of Shoreview as a natural resources specialist. So anything environmental you could think of, I got those phone calls. And I chose to come to the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District because at the city of Shoreview, with some of my responsibilities, I discovered a real passion for stormwater management and water resources. And I felt like my interest in that needed to grow, and I thought this was a great gateway into more of that career field. A lot of the tasks and responsibilities in the permitting team were very similar to what I did at the city, and so I thought it was going to be a very smooth transition. And I'm just really excited to learn and further my growth development in this field and see what I can pursue.
Well, welcome.
Outstanding.
What was your first day?
It was last Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
So
1 week under your belt. Well, it's wonderful to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes of the October 20th board meeting. And 3 consent items, 3 resolutions are 2262, which is first approving the First Amendment to the temporary easement for the Southwest LRT construction, and 2266, recognition of our Citizen Advisory Committee member, John Saldet. And 067 is recognition of the CAC member, Peter Reckelbacher. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll take a motion from Manager Miller and second from Manager Hejmati. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Two items I want to mention this evening. One is that the 2023 calendar is in draft form right now, and it looks like it's going to be really easy for us because we'll be able to have second and fourth Thursdays and not change that schedule throughout the year, with the one exception of November, when we'll have a meeting at the 30th, which is a week after Thanksgiving. So that looks like a great calendar to me. And then the other item is that we'll have mediation coming up on our litigation in December. And as before, I would ask the board to approve designating Manager Loftus and I to attend on the board's behalf the day of the mediation. Thank you, Manager Miller. Is there a second? Manager Hejmati?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm going to make that official. And then Operations and Programs Committee meeting report, Manager Loftus.
Yes, thank you. All members were present, so I don't need to go into deep detail. But for the public, we had two agenda items. The first was reviewing applications for the Citizen Advisory Committee. There's 14 members. There's 8 positions that we have 4 returning incumbents and 4 brand new members. This item is going to come to the full board in December with the 8 recommendations from staff to continue our CAC committee of 14 members. The second item was at the request of Manager Miller. It was the discussion of the 2003 functional assessment of wetlands. Mr. Beck gave us a great summary of why the assessment was done, how we've used it in the past, what questions it provokes now, and of course laid out how we might look at the issues strategically in the future, which will play into our next strategic plan in 2027. So it was a great discussion. Appreciate everyone's poking and prodding and all the work that went into the presentation. It's very good.
Thank you. Our upcoming meeting and event schedule is printed here in the agenda. The CAC committee will meet on November 9th with Manager Hejmati as the board's representative. And then we have committee and board meetings coming up on November 17th and December 1st. We'll move now to item 10.1, which is permit, looking to Mr. Roche to present.
Good evening, President White and Board of Managers. Before you tonight, I have 2 items for your consideration and approval. That being the authority to execute a new stormwater regional treatment agreement between the City of Victoria and the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. And the other item is permit 22-436. This is a private development that would be seeking to utilize the proposed regional facilities to provide stormwater treatment to their site. So tonight's agenda will be going over the location of the subject parcel, just briefly summarizing the development and the regional agreement, and then touching on the proposed work under permit 22-436, and then staff's recommendation. So you can see here, the site is located in the southwestern portion of the district in the City of Victoria. Here's this parcel is highlighted here in yellow. You can see there's a couple areas of previous district interest, including the Steger wetland restoration to the east and the East Auburn stormwater enhancement to the south of the site. Here is just an aerial view of the parcel. It is a 13.5 acre publicly owned site that the city is proposing to redevelop to include 8.9 acres of impervious surface. That work would be constructed over 2 phases of development, and based on the size of the site, the amount of proposed impervious and site disturbance, the required scope of stormwater treatment is volume control, phosphorus control, and rate control. Here's the plan set view. So the area on the left-hand side that's grayed out, that is a proposed future phase. The city is still exploring partnership opportunities with developers in that area. So that site is going to be applied for at a later date. And then the right-hand side is the proposed phase 1. And this is going to, as part of this overall development, there will be 3 filtration ponds that will be established to provide that stormwater treatment, with the filtration design being selected due to soils on site not being suitable for infiltration. And just to move on here, so a couple of areas associated with the proposed phase 1 here. The areas highlighted in yellow are a road reconstruction project for Steger Lake Lane that was previously permitted this last summer under permit 22-212. As part of that work, one of the filtration ponds is going to be installed. The city was originally going to try do work over the summer and complete this fall. They have since pushed that timeline back for work to start next spring. The area highlighted here in blue is the phase 1. So this would represent approximately 3.27 acres of the total proposed 8.9 acres of impervious under all phases of development. The city will be submitting a permit application and 90% design plans later this month. And the proposed timeline for this work to be completed would be spring of 2023 and would complete in the fall of 2023. So part of that first phase, the city will be constructing several areas of public infrastructure. Here you can see this will be a central green area that will be green space and an associated parking area. You see this is one of the proposed filtration basins here. And then also located within phase 1 of the development here is the Marco McLean development that is proposed under permit 22-436. This is going to be a multi-family residential building. There'll be 4 stories and 145 units, and it represents about just under half of the total proposed impervious under phase 1. The applicants for this site are proposing to start work this fall and then have an anticipated completion date of April of 2024. And in order to provide stormwater treatment for their site, they would be seeking to tie into the two filtration ponds, the one associated with phase 1, and then the other pond that would be established as part of the Steger Lake Lane Road reconstruction project. So again, just a more sequence of the timeline. Permit 22-436 will be looking to start work this fall. The public infrastructure work is anticipated to start in April of 2023 and complete in October of 2023. And then the work under permit 22-436 is anticipated to be completed in April of 2024. Then, as previously noted, required scope of treatment was for volume, rate, and phosphorus control. These are the figures that the city has provided for the modeling to demonstrate that. Table 1 demonstrates the required amount of volume, water quality volume under an infiltration design, and the proposed volume, the provided volume under the filtration design. Since filtration only counts towards 50% of abstraction compared to the infiltration design, they have met that requirement by providing twice as much volume storage. So they have met the volume and phosphorus control requirements. And the second table here shows the rate control being provided by the 3 proposed facilities. Under each of the 3 storm events, they have demonstrated a reduction in peak rate. So for the reason for the ask for the new regional agreement, since the city is will be designing and installing the proposed regional facilities, the agreement is in place to make sure they are designed in accordance with our stormwater requirements, and so that the district is able to track the volume credits as the various phases of development come through. Under the agreement, the city has responsibility for design and construction of the regional ponds. They will have to grant permission to private developments seeking to utilize those ponds to provide treatment on site for their sites. And then the city will also be responsible for upkeep and maintenance of the proposed ponds and notifying the district of any changes to those design plans. District's requirements under the agreement is technical review and support to ensure that as the gradual phases of development come through, that the intent of the stormwater rule is still being met, and the basins are remaining functional. For 22-436, again, this is just the location of the proposed multifamily building under the aerial view of the parcel. The rules triggered for this specific project were erosion control and, again, stormwater management. The applicants have provided an erosion control plan here. The area of silt fence is highlighted in red. The rock construction entrance is highlighted in orange. And the areas circled in blue are the proposed locations of inlet protection. So based on this proposed SWIP plan, they have met the intent of the erosion control rule. And then, again, just due to the amount of land disturbance and increase in impervious, the stormwater rule is triggered. The applicants are going to be looking to use the proposed basins to provide the main source of treatment, but the applicants will also be installing an on-site pre-treatment BMP, similar to the ones used at 325 Blake. These would be subsurface features that would remove sediment, trash, and other suspended solids before the captured stormwater runoff is directed to these ponds. So based on the based on the stormwater treatment provided by the proposed regional facilities, staff and the district engineer do not have any concerns about impact to natural resource on site or local groundwater issues. The proposed agreement does meet the intent of Section 7 of the stormwater rule. So as such, it's staff's recommendation for the authorization to execute the new regional stormwater management agreement, and to also approve permit 22-436, which would seek to utilize those facilities on the conditions of the authorization of the new regional agreement plan, and then also that a maintenance declaration for the pre-treatment BMP be recorded against the property. I'm happy to take any questions that the board may have about the project.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. And of course, 10.1 and 11.1 are linked. Looks like we should take 11.1 first, which is the Resolution 22068, approving the Regional Stormwater Management Plan for Downtown West Victoria Development. Is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Manager Olson? Any questions of Mr. Roach regarding the plan?
Quick one.
Yes.
On the letter the city engineer sent you, Kara Guerin, that letter finalized the city council's approval of everything we've agreed to.
Correct, yes. City council has approved a final plan. It's approved the purchase agreement between the city and that private developer for 22-436.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions, Mr. Roach? Then all those in favor of adopting 22068, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And now we'll move to permit 22436. Is there a motion to approve do I have 2 steps there or just 1?
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And the approval would be with the conditions outlined and shown in the request for board action. Any questions? on the permit? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Roach.
Thank you.
Good collaboration between the city and the district here, wasn't there? And now, as we indicated earlier, we're going to move to item 12.1, which will require a closed session. So I would ask those not involved to leave the room. Mr. Smith, would you state the reason for going to closed session?
Madam President, this time we recommend that the board go into closed session for the purpose of receiving confidential legal advice about litigation strategy in the Minnehaha Preserve Boardwalk litigation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Manager
Second.
Olson moves, second. Manager Maxwell. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in closed session. I recognize Mr. Radio. So I just need a motion to go back into open session.
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Maxwell. Is there a second?
Second.
Manager Miller. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Schaufler, Resolution 22069 and 070.
All right. Chair White, Board of Managers, tonight staff is seeking authorization to seasonally close the Minnehaha Preserve Boardwalk for the winter of 2022 to 2023. As you just heard from Mr. Radio, the district has done this the past 2 winters and is recommending closure again this winter due to user safety during the winter months. As you can see here, during the winter months, ice and snow creates a challenging surface to traverse when snow begins to accumulate on top of the fluorescent markings and patched plywood patches. So this year, we're proposing to install the same barriers, and we actually kept them so we can just reuse them and reinstall them at the 7 entry points of the boardwalk. And I just want to note that the length of this closure will be dependent on the board's approval of the next action item, which is approving the construction contract. So should the board approve the construction contract, these barriers would just remain in place until the reconstruction would begin, and then the construction contractor would fully fence off the boardwalk area. So with that, staff is seeking the board's approval to seasonally close the boardwalk system for this winter and install wood barriers with signage.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution? So moved. Manager Sando, is there a second? Manager Tetchamati.
Can
Any
you provide
questions?
for a alternative place for me to smoke my cigar?
You can just walk around in the parking lot there at
All
that
right.
Isaac Walton Park, you know.
Just a quick comment there. You had that photograph of the barrier.
Yeah.
Is that just hinged in place or nailed in place or screwed down? What is that?
Yeah, President White and Manager Olson, it's screwed in place.
Okay. I would feel better if all the footprints went up to it and stopped.
There's a
There are, yeah.
Michelle, did you use 4A for that?
If that's really raccoons and things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, going underneath. I
Yeah.
see. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Schaufler before we vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, next item.
All right. So, Chair White, managers, tonight the board is requested to award a construction contract for the Minnehaha Preserve Boardwalk Reconstruction Project. First, I just want to provide background on the milestones that have gotten us to tonight. So back in March, the board approved a contract with SRF Consulting to design the reconstruction. Then in June, the board reviewed the 75% design plans, and then at the end of July, the board approved the 100% plans and authorized staff to solicit bids. The bid period was open for approximately 6 weeks, from September 2nd to October 13th. We held a mandatory pre-bid meeting in this room on September 13th, where we had 10 potential bidders attend. We then opened the bids on October 13th, and we had 4 responses, which you can see here on the table below, and ranged from approximately 1.8 million to 2.6 million. I do want to note that the engineer's estimate which on the bottom was $1.5 million. And I reviewed the SRF's estimate and the low bid, and the bid items that accounted for this approximately $300,000 difference was the price of wood and the market fluctuations that had occurred since the cost estimate. And in reviewing JTS's bid, as was noted in the resolution and board packet items and in an email from council, there was some irregularities, such as not signing some documents and notarizing some other documents. Staff reviewed these irregularities with council, and council instructed that JTS should be asked to correct the defects of their bid, and they have since addressed those irregularities. Additional legal counsel has identified that these irregularities did not affect the substance of the bid or the bid price, and that the Board of Managers, on advice of council, may waive these irregularities. Therefore, staff has found that the JTS's bid and SRF engineer has also found that their bid is responsive and responsible, and staff recommends that the board award the construction contract to JTS Construction. And then you can see here on the right, they plan to perform all the work. They're not using any subcontractors, and they also have recently done projects for the city of Edina, Three Rivers Park, and MnDOT.
Perfect.
And I just want to note that, as Mr. Radio just noted, we do plan to give notice to all the defendants that when we do start to begin reconstruction, that they have an opportunity to come out and mark any boards that they want salvaged, and then we will pull those aside for them. There was a bid item in the bid for that. And then lastly, I want to note, should the board approve the construction contract award tonight, we will be planning on coordinating communications and signage with the City of St. Louis Park to alert users of when the pending reconstruction might occur. So with that, the board is requested to approve the resolution which awards the contract to JTS Construction in the amount of $1,858,182, establish a not to exceed construction budget of $2,044,000, and authorize the administrator to issue the notice to proceed. And with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Manager Sando, is there a second? Manager Hejmati. Any questions for Ms. Schaufler on this item? Manager Olson.
The only concern I had is when I read through Chuck Holtman's opinions on those 4 paragraphs, was the 4 different choices of preservative. Was that us who picked the 4 different preservatives with our spec?
President White, Manager Olson. So in the specs, there was, for the UCA 4A, there's 4 approved MnDOT treatments allotted, and we left it up to the contractor, knowing that SRF had identified there's been some variability on availability of different preservative treatments. Okay. So they were leaving it up to what was the contractor to decide on what they could find available.
Okay, and so subsequently you said they've addressed all those irregularities and they've told us what they're going to use?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure that we weren't going right down that same rabbit hole with somebody coming up with something that would, yeah, thank you.
I had some concerns about this. Anybody that could turn in a non-complete application didn't really sit with me very well how somebody could, but I guess you had with Three Rivers and Edina, and that kind of helps a little bit, but it's just kind of, an incomplete application like that was a lot of stuff on there that kind of just threw up some red flags for me. But if we looked at it, or was it wood stuff that they did in Edina, and it wasn't concrete now or something like that they did?
Yeah.
In other areas?
President White, Manager Maxwell. With Edina, I believe it was a road construction project, but with Three Rivers and MnDOT, it's been more of wood materials, installing like sound walls along MnDOT roads and stuff like that. So they said that they've done a number of wood and lumber projects and are very familiar with the project and the treatments that we have laid out.
All right, that helps. I just, incomplete application, I just tried to, what were they thinking about when they did all this stuff, so.
Thank you for your questions. Anything else? All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Thank you very much. It's good to be at this place. Are there any board issues, questions, or inquiries that you wish to mention at this time? Seeing no hands, Mr. Whisker, your report.
Thank you, President White and managers. A quick update on how dry it is. We've got 18.78 inches of precipitation this year. And if you're keeping track, that's 10.25 inches below normal. Just under 4.5 inches less than what we'd received this time last year. And so just in terms of where that has us sitting, in terms of records, because we like to keep track of those things, June 1st to October 31st is now the second driest period ever, the second driest of that period ever recorded. In September and October, that 60-day period, we got just less than half an inch of rain, and that had October sitting as the sixth driest October ever on human record in our region. The drought monitor's been updated. We were in sort of the 2% club. It's been drier and expanding out in circles, so now there's a larger portion of the state that's experiencing extreme drought, 6.5%. In terms of how all that drought's affected Lake Minnetonka, the lake level's at 927.4. That's almost 24 inches now below the ordinary high water mark of 929.4. It's 14 inches below the runout elevation. If we lose another inch, which we might before freeze, it'd be the lowest the lake's been in 22 years. And last year at this exact time, the lake was 6 inches higher than it is today. You'll recall both last year and this year, we ended up closing the dam because of low lake levels in July. So we closed the dam this year in July 21st. And since the closure, you know, we've been thinking about evaporation as losses during drought conditions. We've lost 13 inches on the lake since July just due to wind and heat driven evaporation. So it's safe to say the lake's probably not going to bounce up to the point where we need to operate the dam this year. So this morning, staff coordinated with the city of Minnetonka and winterized the dam, and the stop logs are now in. And the creek's no longer flowing. There are areas of refuge. I was fortunate enough to get down into the Blake Road corridor today in St. Louis Park, Meadowbrook. Portions of St. Louis Park still have water in the creek, so there's patches of refuge but no flow. And in terms of the forecast, still pretty warm and dry. I mean, if you're outside today, it doesn't feel like November. It's kind of strange. But we've got about a half inch of rain predicted through the weekend. We'll see if that actually makes its way.
Yeah, there's some rain predicted. They were saying, well, very little is the.
Even if it rains a lot, I think as compared to, you know, just where the system is, it'll be the proverbial and literal drop in our bucket.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking of the, the LiDAR that we're going to do.
Yeah. We'll still be in good shape, Manager Hejmati, for the LiDAR that we're working on contract with MnDOT, because we'd have to essentially, what did I say? We'd have to bounce the lake up back to 928.6. So we'd need 14 inches in Minnetonka before we would have, you know, sustained flow in the creek from the lake. So we might have some periods of flash if it rains and we get runoff producing events from the grid below the dam into the creek. But as you walk up and down, if you get into the creek area, you can see bank and you can see bed. And the point of the LiDAR after the leaf out is to really get the contour, the shape of the channel, so we have all those sort of cross-sectional slices for our model. So I think we're in good shape.
I think we're in good shape?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good.
Good question.
I was going to say, we had 2014, and then followed that, I think it was 16. It was the wettest year.
We had, well, yeah, we had a period of the 7 sort of wettest years on record from 14, and then now we're immediately swinging into periods of
extreme.
record drought, and we broke a series of records. You know, I think it was the wettest. If you want the recollection of records, we have the almanac sitting to my right, but that 2014 we had a flood of record, and it was the wettest, you know, spring to June ever recorded, and then we had the wettest almost
Year.
decade.
Yeah.
We had individual wettest years. We had wettest winters. We broke a lot of records during that period of time, and now we're on the other end of the climate spectrum. So it'll be interesting to see how long this is sustained, because as the climate forecasts are that as we get towards mid-century, temperatures are going to keep increasing. We're going to get deeper droughts and more sustained periods of drought, and then followed by really excessive, intense periods of flooding and rainfall. And that certainly seems to be what we're feeling right now.
In 1986, we were a record low, as I recall, where submerged islands weren't submerged anymore. Do you remember what the elevation was prior to the big dump of rain?
Tiffany might. I was 5, so.
Probably studying the water. One in the back or whatever.
President White, Manager Olson, I've been looking at, what were the lows prior to 2012. We beat that now. Now we're getting close to 2000 low levels. In the 86 to 88, 89, I think it got down to around 925. So if we beat the 2000 levels here, then that would be the next benchmark. The all-time lowest happened in 1937 in the peak of the Dust Bowl drought, and it was down to 921 point, I can't remember exactly, so 6 feet lower than it is today. So
Thank you.
I've read a Minnesota Supreme Court case where they were dividing up, trying to decide how to divide up the land so they could plant potatoes in the lake.
yeah, I
How to
know
draw
there was
those property
farming
lines, yeah.
happening in the lake bed.
So 925 was 86.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there,
929 is average, and we're at 927.
927.4.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Any other questions about how warm or dry it is? Couple of other updates just to round things out. President White and I are going to be beginning our cycle of commissioner meeting engagements, I think, over the next couple of months. So we'll look for feedback from Sherry on that as we report back during our regular board meetings. So we're going to be getting those scheduled. On the personnel front, we heard a couple of updates. Mike, Tiffany, and I have been sitting through first round interviews, interviewing candidates for the project maintenance and land manager position. We just finished first round. We're looking to wrap up the second round interviews in the next couple of weeks. And we have a decent pool of finalists, so we'll see how that goes. And hopefully, leading up to the next meeting, when is that, November 17th, we'll have an update for you on if we've made a decision and secured a candidate for to be a partner with Tiffany in driving that program forward. And then we've got, you heard from Helen today, and she'd sent some emails offline just about the outreach transition. So we're working, or I'm working closely, and so are the program managers with Samantha and Stacy to make sure that they feel supported and can keep driving the work forward over the next 60 days. I think I'm leaning in fairly heavily just to provide some project management support on the website, which is sort of their big key initiative. We have the CAC appointment process and our next couple of meetings there, and I'll keep attending those meetings along with our board liaison and make sure that our new members feel welcomed and we round out the year and enter the new year with some good momentum on Citizens Advisory Committee. And the rest of the work we're just treating on a as-needs basis for right now. In terms of backfilling that, we're going to allow that team to assimilate. They're both pretty new. Work closely with me, focus on delivering the website, keep the priorities focused. And really the next position that was in queue to be thinking about filling was the operations manager, which the board had discussed and authorized as part of the 2023 budget. So if we are going to move on the next posting and hiring at a manager level, it's probably going to be there while I keep working with outreach to just drive work forward. Let me know if you've got questions about that, just in terms of the comings and goings of staff and how we're continuing to build out the team. And then finally, go ahead, Manager Hejmati, if you have a question on that.
Do you have any idea of a schedule for when Helen's position will be filled? Are you saying 6 months, a year? What are you thinking about?
I need to give it a little bit more time. I know staff's asking me that, and I think we're really just focused on the work that's immediately in front of us. And I think what I could do is, and what I'm working on for both our program manager team and Samantha and Stacy is stepping back and thinking about, I want to get through the project maintenance and land management hiring process first and figure out if we have a candidate that we're bringing in, make sure that they integrate seamlessly into Tiffany's team, they get the onboarding that they need. Thinking about the operations manager and outreach, I just want to make sure we're taking a balanced approach there so that we're not trying to bring 3 managers in at the same time. So I want to step back and just evaluate timeline and need, and then I could report back to the board with a more concrete timeline. But if we're moving forward with backfilling that, not 6 months.
Okay.
Any other questions just about personnel updates? Very good. And then just as we round out the year, we're still focused on clearing the pipeline of work that's been in queue, and 2 things that we're really working hard on and pushing to get in front of you in both November and December are the Long Lake Creek roadmap. Brian gave you a little preview of how we've been following our model really of what we've done in 6 Mile and breaking that geography down into discrete management units and knowing what the issues are, what's driving those issues, what our management strategies are in capital projects. And we've taken that same approach with Long Lake, as you saw tonight. That plan or written roadmap is coming together. Becky's had key points of engagement with city staff, with Long Lake Waters. They all seem really supportive and happy of the short list of priorities. What we're seeing emerge, I think, is a fairly focused and elegant strategy that's going to complement our work in 6 Mile and work downstream in Minnehaha Creek and slot right in terms of part of our Lake Minnetonka strategy of dealing with these regional tributaries. And what we're seeing emerge is, and you saw some of this tonight, flows from north of Long Lake right now from 2 major tributaries come through a big regional pond that we own. It's called the County Road 6 pond. With pre and post monitoring of that pond, we know that it could be retrofitted and improved. So it's an asset that we own that we could retrofit, we have land rights for, and is slotted into our next year's CIP. So that's one of the first projects on deck. Another area of high loading is from the west of Long Lake. It's from downtown Long Lake. And so we've had conversations about integrating a stormwater facility into some of their public parkland, which they're supportive of. And the reason I mention that is Becky will be in front of you probably at the November 17th committee meeting to give you a preview of the strategy before the roadmap plan is delivered, to see if there's board support for making that project a priority for chasing watershed-based funding from the state, some of those block grants of non-competitive funding. And that would tee Long Lake up to have some seed money for that project, maybe prime them to come through a land and water partnership for gap funding and their own funding and get that project mobilized. North of there, I'm waving my arms a lot, but north of Long Lake, it's going to be a much more diffuse strategy, which is interesting. What we're seeing, and you might remember the work that we were trying to push through Wolf Cell Woods, the DNR, and some of the eroded ravines, is there's a lot of wetlands that are providing loading. Brian talked about that tonight of they've done a really good job reducing nutrient loading, but some of them are sources, as well as there's just a lot of eroded ravines and channels. So our strategy up there won't be one focused big regional project. It's going to be a bunch of actions across individual lands. And so we're thinking about working with Long Lake Waters and the cities to drive the development community as land turns over towards us for partnership. You can think the Holy Name banking opportunity, and individual landowners for ravine stabilization projects. So I'm really excited with that work that's been chugging along in the background with what I'm seeing from Brian and Becky, not to hype it too much, is they've taken our focal geography model and quietly developed a whole nother focal geography strategy in the background with state grant funding. And hopefully when that comes forward with the maps and the presentation, you'll be as excited as I am, because I think there'll be capital projects there that slot neatly into our CIP to complement our long construction window for 325, how we're chasing work in Minneapolis and working on relationships, and the measured progress that we're making in 6 Mile. So really good stuff that I hope makes its way through the board before the end of the year. And then the other piece is going to be the climate action framework. So we're getting through final copy writing and editing on that, and it's in layout, and we're going to get that through the board in December. So just a preview of some of the things that will be coming in the next Sorry for getting carried away on Long Lake. I got excited about that and went off script. But that's my administrator's report for tonight.
Thank you very much. Any questions for James? That's a lot of work. You guys are busy.
I just noted your, all the historic recall that James had, it's recognizing your approaching middle age, and it's been 20 years.
Didn't you
I
see
thought it
that
was going to be a
coming?
comment about my tie that's as, 16 years old. That I wore during my first presentation, or like how lean I've gotten. But it was a memory comment.
Oh dear.
I'm glad my memory's still in good shape.
Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.